so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much.
Hello, all you positive heads. Welcome to a very special episode dedicated to none other than you, the P-heads themselves. I am your P-head enthusiast and hostess for the day, Alexa Hauser. I have been blessed to have the experience of helping out with Positive Head social media for the better part of a year. And through my digital interactions, I began to realize, as did Brandon, that we have some incredible beings listening to this show who are taking the information that Brandon puts out through the podcast and using it to transform their lives and create wonderful things. You listeners are all a huge, huge part of the life force that propels this show forward through time and space, and we think it's time to bring forth some of you beautiful reflections and delve a little deeper into this collection of energy that is the Positive Head community. So as we shine the spotlight on our listeners, what we'll have them do is share their stories of how they attracted Positive Head into their life, the transformation it's facilitated for them, and what they're focused on creating now that they're in a more positive headspace. Also, this episode of the Positive Head podcast is being brought to you thanks to the support of Gaia. If you're not familiar, Gaia is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content online. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Hello, all you positive heads. On this week's P-Head Posse episode, our guest is Positive Head listener Princeton Clark. Princeton is a self-mastery coach, spiritual teacher who has been teaching self-mastery for the past 15 years. He is the founder of Evolved Mastery, and his purpose is to impact millions of people through his personal gifts, impact billions of people through the Evolved Mastery platform that he is building, and to leave a legacy that shines light long after he transitions from this essence of life. Hi, Princeton. Welcome to the show.
Hey, what's going on? How are you?
Very well, very well. I love this intro. It's crazy because I've seen, this is one of those things where like I've seen so much of you and we've interacted a little bit online, but we're like finally connected, and I'm so excited to just hear everything that you're about and what's going on with you. So I'm happy that you're here.
Oh, I'm super excited too. I appreciate you guys having me on the podcast, shedding a little more light into more spaces of the world. It's super exciting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, so why don't we start at the beginning? Would you mind, giving us just kind of an overview of your story, like where you come from, how you got on this spiritual path, and how you ended up, where you are now?
Okay, I'll try to condense this into as small of a increment as I can.
Okay.
I haven't always had the easiest of lives. A lot of people say, Princeton, I wish I could be like you. I wish I could be, so positive and motivated all the time. And I tell them, I haven't always been here. When I was younger, I went through a lot. I was abused mentally, physically, verbally, and emotionally as a child. I was molested between the ages of 9 and 11. And didn't really realize what was happening to me, until about age 16. I remember sitting at my grandmother's house, and, she was watching this is an old talk show called The Phil Donahue Show. And, that episode was about victims of domestic violence. Well, there's a man on there, and he was talking about his experiences, and they were so similar to my own that, I remember sitting there and listening to this, and my entire body just got hot. My face, my ears, I can still feel it. Just this rage shot through me because I felt so, at that moment, I felt so violated. I felt like I had gone through things, and, I started feeling worthless, which led to, in high school, struggling with my grades. I started struggling with depression in high school. After that happened, went through this series of events that led me to really start contemplating suicide. And my mother and father found a letter in my room while my mom was cleaning my room one day where I'd written about committing suicide. And, of course, being in high school, they took me to a psychiatrist. Psychiatrist put me on medication, and I didn't take the medication. I was stubborn at that time. I wasn't listening to anyone, and so they gave me the medication, and long story short, I didn't take it. Struggled with that, barely graduated high school, missed out on opportunities for scholarships, for track, and other opportunities, barely graduated, but ended up getting involved with drugs and gangs and, all of that when I got out of high school. And, my high school sweetheart at the time, we had broken up. We were just friends at the time, but she was like my best friend. We ended up getting married when I was 21 and thinking, this will make everything better. I just need something to care about, and we had my oldest son at the time, and she got pregnant with my daughter, my next oldest. And, she had her issues. I had mine. Long story short, we went through a lot early on with that. And it took me down an even deeper spiral. I was drinking so much at this point that I had bleeding ulcers. I was throwing up blood. I was coughing up blood because I smoked so much and, used drugs. Like I said, I sold drugs and I was fighting all the time. And I mean, I've been in situations that most people only see on TV, shootouts and you name it. But at the age of 23, after going through everything that I went through, I found myself at a point where I had a gun to my head and I pulled the trigger. And, a lot of people say, well, if he really wanted to commit suicide, he would have committed suicide. He wouldn't be here. Well, no, I actually pulled the trigger and the gun misfired. And I always tell people it was in that moment that although the literal bullet did not fire, a conscious one did, because in that moment, something in me shifted. And I didn't really understand what was happening at that time, but being where I am now, I can say, I came to an awakening point, and I realized that although I'd gone through everything that I'd gone through in my life, it wasn't those things that dictated where I now was in my life. It was how I chose to respond that dictated where I was now at this point in my life. And, of course, it wasn't just this quick shift. It started that night, but throughout that week, a couple of other events took place, where I really came to the end of myself. And I remember, one night, I believe it was that Friday night, the end of the week, I had gone out. My ex-wife and I were living at my sister's house at the time. And, I've gone out, I've been drinking and hanging out with my friends and getting high. And I came back and I remember just sitting at the table. I put music on and I just remember, just feeling so angry, and I took a steak knife and I lit the tip of it with a lighter and I stuck it on my arm, like this, and I couldn't feel it. I lit the tip of it with the lighter and I held a flame to it again. I put it on this arm. It's like at this point, I just wanted to feel pain. I felt like I deserved to feel pain and I didn't know what was happening with me. I felt like I was here, but not here. So many different things were happening on the inside of me. And all of a sudden, after I did it the second time, I started shaking really bad. And I went into the bathroom and I got wet napkins and I just put them on my arms. And I was just sitting here and my arms were just shaking. And it felt like something was pushing on my chest. That it sounds crazy. Well, I'm talking to you guys, so it doesn't sound crazy to you guys, but I just felt this pressure, almost like the Heimlich, like something was pressing on my chest. And I'm sitting there on the edge of the toilet like this, and I'm just shaking. And all of a sudden I just opened my mouth. And when I opened my mouth, I just yelled, "What do you want from me?" And when I did that, I said, I've tried everything in my power to be who I want to be and nothing has worked, and this voice spoke to me and it was so crazy. I mean, I understand it now to be my higher self. But at this point in my life, even though I grew up in the Bible Belt, I was atheist. I heard people talk about God and love and all this stuff, but I never saw it, so I just heard this voice and it spoke back to me and said, "That's your problem. You've tried everything in your power to be who you want to be. Now try this power and let me show you who you are." And I remember closing my eyes at that point. And when I opened my eyes, I was almost on my tippy toes and my arms were outstretched wide and my head was back and tears were pouring from my eyes. Now, at this point, I never showed emotion. I was angry. As a matter of fact, probably about 6 weeks prior to this happening, my own mother had come to me and said, "You need to get back into church. You need to give your life to Jesus, change your life, or you're going to end up dead or in jail." And I looked at her with a straight face and I said, "If one more person says something to me about God or Jesus, I'm going to kill him." like, so as you can imagine, going from that state to being where I am now, like something crazy was happening in me because I didn't show emotion. But at this moment, it felt like everything that I'd ever felt, everything that I'd ever pushed down it was just coming out, and I couldn't hold it back. I couldn't lock it back down anymore. And, I closed my eyes again. And when I opened my eyes, I was on my elbows and my knees in the floor. And at this point, I had cried so much that there were literally puddles of my tears in the floor from where I cried so hard. And I remember saying, I can laugh about it now, but I wasn't laughing at the time. But I remember saying, God, Jesus, universe, source, whatever, if you're real, if there is something, if you can take away the pain, the anger, the hurt, the feelings of resentment, if you can take this away from me, I'll die for you. And the voice came back again. It said, you were never sent to die. You were sent to live. And in that moment, I felt like everything fell off of me, almost like this. You always hear people say it, but to actually experience like this weight, it fell off of me. And I stayed down there probably another 5 to 10 minutes. I can't remember how long, but I got up out of the floor in the bathroom and I looked in the mirror, and all I can say is I didn't see Princeton anymore. I didn't see the anger. I didn't see the hate. I didn't see all the fear, the worry. I didn't see the former person anymore. It was almost like looking at a reflection that wasn't myself. And, I just kind of went and sat out on the couch and I fell asleep. And I remember waking up that next morning and everything was super bright to me. That's all. It's like the colors were bright. It was almost like I was really sensitive to light. And it was so crazy because, I was just talking, and this week following that, my parents thought I had a nervous breakdown, because I went from being this angry person who was fighting all the time and cursing people out. Every other word out of my mouth was a curse word. I went from being that person to in a week, literally walking around and talking to people and saying, do you know how valuable you are? Do you know how special every moment is? Do you know, and so they're thinking, what has he done? Like he's overcompensating for something right now. Like, did he break the law? Like he's being too nice. Like Princeton's never this nice, and so I could understand that, being where I am now. But that's really what set me on a path to, my own spiritual journey, my own path of self-mastery. And it started, again, growing up in the Bible Belt. I didn't know what was happening to me. So, of course, the first place I started was the Bible. And I ended up in a year, I still didn't go back to a quote unquote church because in a year, I wanted to know for myself. I started studying the Hebrew, the Greek, the Aramaic. I read the Bible from beginning to end. I bought a student Bible, a Strong's Exhaustive Concordance, and, all these other books, because I went into this phase of just wanting to know, what is the underlying, what was happening to me, and were there other stories out there like my own? And in this time, I was led, like I would wake up at 2:00 in the morning and I would just feel led, to just go talk to people in the same streets that I'd sold drugs in, the same streets that I'd been in fights in, and all these things. I would just feel led to go talk to people. And I remember one night specifically going out, and I just walked and walked and walked. I don't know how many miles into town. And I got there and I just started talking. There were people that were still up, again, people that were drinking and partying or, using drugs, the old crowd that I used to hang out with. And I just started talking to them, and telling them, like, look, you don't have to live this life. It's a choice. Like, we all make choices, and our choices bring us to where we are. But long story short, that night I found myself surrounded by this group of people, and next thing I know, they're hugging each other. They're crying, and I'm hugging them, and I'm crying. And it was then that I felt my calling, I guess you could say, and I said, if I could live the rest of my life impacting lives like this, and I had no idea, the range at which I would grow, or what would come out of me from that point, but that's where the journey really began for me, stepping into this path and really taking on the path of self-mastery, myself, and realizing just how powerful we are, and the next step was really one other night, I was led out and I was led down this one area where, these guys, I'd been in fights with them, I've been in a shootout with them before, and just crazy stuff had happened. And, I was led to go. And so I parked my car at the top of the hill because the road that I was led to go down, it's a dead end road. So even in that state of being, I'm like, okay, I'm not driving my car down in there, because if I drive my car down in there, I'm going to have to, there's no way out. I'm going to have to come back the same way I came in. So I parked my car at the top of the road and I walked down, like kind of zigzag through the woods into that area. And, as I knew they would be, they were sitting outside. And so I walk up, and when they saw me, they recognized me as I entered under the light, and they were like, "We think you're in the wrong neighborhood." And so they walk down, off of the porch. They walk down, and they're in the street facing me at this point. And one of the guys pulls a gun, and he puts the gun to my head. And I just looked at him and I said, "You know what? None of us living this life want to live this life." I said, and this body for me has done nothing but cause me pain my entire life. So if you pulled that trigger, you set me free. I have no fear. I'm not worried about anything. Otherwise I wouldn't be here. But if you're going to pull that trigger, my last words to you are, I love you. And you may never hear that again, but I love you. And all of a sudden his hand started shaking, and he fell in towards me. And as he fell in towards me, I kind of braced myself like, wait, what's going, but he fell into me. And then his friend kind of jumped, because there was a friend standing to the right of me. And so he kind of left like, what's going on? And he fell into me, and I just grabbed him, and he started crying on my shoulder. And it was in that moment that it just hit me how powerful not just saying I love you is, but how powerful the vibration of love is. Because so many people talk about love and flowing in love and being in love, but are you vibrating love? Are you being love? Because it's easy to talk about it. It sounds good. It sounds good on audio. But are you truly standing in a power that can shift the energy around you completely? Yeah. Because if I say, oh, I'm walking in love, but yet every time I turn around, the situations or circumstances around me are affecting me, I'm not standing in the power of love. Because I'm one of the guys that I used to read a lot. He said in one of his books, he said, one of two things are going to happen in any given environment. Either you are going to impact it, or it's going to impact you. Love that. I realized, as I continue to grow, because I have had several instances like that where I've been led to talk to people and even say things to people clairvoyantly where, there was no way I could have known it. And there's been so much expansion, but just condensing the conversation right now. Yeah, that's really what began my journey, and that's what awakened me. And I realized that, I am here to be love and to evolve in love so that I can bring the light and energy of love to this world and literally shift the environment. And I know without a shadow of a doubt, any person who crosses my path, whether it's in a podcast or on a video or any person who enters my presence, they will not be the same when they leave. Because I live and flow from the energy of love, and I know, and I firmly have faith in its ability to shift everything, and that's pretty much where it began, and I've, for the past 15 years, I have evolved, and mastered, I always say master mind, body, and soul. Those are the three foundational stones of self-mastery. When you realize that when you say the mind, I'm not speaking of the brain. The brain and the mind are two completely different things. The brain is a system. It's like a computer. You've been recording all these things your entire life. All your actions, non-actions, your words, your emotions are all controlled by thought. But I am not my thoughts. I am the observer of my thoughts. I am the mind behind what I create. And so being present in the mind of being, in the presence of being, I've had to learn how to master that, and could take control of my mind to the point where I become completely observant in every aspect of my life. And physically being present energetically in my body, understanding the spiritual, emotional, and physical cues that my body gives me and how I respond or choose not to respond. And soulfully understanding that the soul is the glue that holds it all together, and so being deeply connected in the mind and the soul of creation as a whole, learning to master each one of those areas, the past 15 years, that's what I've done. And that's what I continuously do, because we're always expanding. I never say I never say I'm perfect. I never say I know everything. I'm just a student and I know nothing. I know only that which is revealed to me to know, and at each moment that is evolving, because the moment I try to make something a definitive is the moment it's no longer truth, but because truth is ever evolving, and so, yeah, I could go on and on, but
you could, because I was totally transfixed. I was just like, yeah, like I'm getting a full download rate. I love it. Everything, the story was like, I was like seeing it as a movie. I was like right there with you. I was like, wow. I wanted to ask you, I really loved so many parts of that story, so powerful, so powerful. And I'm constantly blown away by, all the different stories that I hear of all the different, each one of us who kind of goes down our own path to get to where we are now, to get to this place where we all have come to with, Positive Heads, for example, where we're all kind of on the same wavelength. And the part of the story where you were talking about where you went and, the power of love and how this man just like crumbled kind of in your arms. How do we live in love, like live from love? Because I feel, and you were alluding to it already, that there's kind of this like misconception about it. Like a lot of us are like, oh yeah, we're coming from a place of love. We're coming from a place of love, but that's not really like the power of love. So how can we tap into the power of love and live from a place of love in that way?
Oh, wow. That sounds like a really difficult question to answer,
yeah.
But it's almost so simple that it's hard to believe. When we talk about living from a state of love, first, there has to be a realization, that, all the things that we think are love. Remember, when I talk about love, I'm speaking of unconditional love, an unconditional state of being, and so in order to truly step into unconditional love, I have to first learn to love myself, unconditionally, but I have to also, in this next step of that, learn to love others selflessly. And that's what brings together unconditional love, understanding that we're all on a journey. We all have our own path, and we've all made these soul contracts. And I always say, we have this earth curriculum that we each go through. Each one of us has a curriculum that we've made an agreement to grow through in this lifetime. And just like in school, some of us learn a little faster, some of us learn a little slower, but we're all working to get that same degree. We're all working eventually through this lifetime or another lifetime to get to that same degree of love or enlightenment through love. And so learning to be love, learning to flow in love now is all about first becoming formless. You have to literally die to yourself or the idea of self, in a sense, in order to even begin to step into this level of love. Because we all have these ideas of self, this me, my, and I complex or ego, but it's hard to fully step into love if you have not fully died to the idea of self or the idea of ego that you have attached your idea of self to. And so if you truly want to step into love, you have to first learn to love yourself, learn to let go of all the preconceived notions, all the preconceived ideas, what you feel makes you, and realize that you are so uniquely formless. And even though you have this body is not who you are. Your circumstances are not who you are. The situations of your life, which you've gone through, are not who you are. You are unlimited. You are superior. You are source, experiencing source in a different way, consciously in this realm. And so in order to fully step into love, to be love is to be formless. It's to look at your life and realize, I'll use myself as an example, me being where I am now, does that change the fact that I was abused? No. Does it change the fact that I was molested? No. Does it change the fact that I was in gangs and selling drugs and on drugs and so on and so forth? Does it change the fact that I tried to commit suicide? No, it doesn't. And people always ask, how can you speak so easily about it as though it didn't happen? Because It's not happening to me anymore. And at the end of the day, even if something does happen, because we can't always control our circumstances, but we can always control how we respond. So when we talk about being loving and flowing in a state of love, what that stems from is our ability to stand in the power of ourselves, our ability to stand in our power to create our own reality and realize that how I respond to any given situation in this moment of now is creating the next moment. And so if I don't want to create more of the same insane cycle or more of the same responses, I have to now learn to step into my power, as a creator, and I have to learn to step into my power to continuously flow, as I've always flown, in the spirit. Are you still there?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I'm so into what you're saying. I'm sorry. I'm so quiet.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. On my end, it told me that the signal was lost. So I just wanted to make sure.
Oh no, I'm here.
Okay,
we're good.
But it's a spider web question because everybody's on a different journey. Everybody's curriculum, life path curriculum is different, and we all learn love through different ways, through different experiences. And there really is no blueprint. I always say every person is like a combination lock, and so I learned how to love. Literally, it wasn't something that I chose to do on my own. If I'm completely honest, I was brought to the end of myself after trying to kill myself. I literally tried to give up, but there was a divine purpose. There was a divine order that kept that from happening, and so I'm still here to tell a story. And to share the light of what has been birthed now from that story, but I learned to love myself. And for me, every moment that I breathe from now, and I guess this is something that I could give to, the listeners. You have to live your life. When I say I love myself, see, after trying to commit suicide, what I realized is that from the moment that bullet didn't fire from that gun, every moment after that was a gift. And I refuse to live another moment of my life living less than I have the potential to live. I refuse to live another moment of my life not loving myself, not loving others, not infusing love into some aspect of the world. I don't have time to be depressed. I don't have time to be worried. I don't have time to be frustrated. I don't have time to be angry. I don't have time, because every moment I live is a blessing to me. It's a gift to me. And see, when we get to a place where we realize that the next moment is not promised to us, the next breath literally is not promised to us. We start living in each moment of now, understanding that right now is the most powerful moment that we have, because how we choose to respond right now is going to dictate the next moment. And how we respond in that moment is going to dictate the next moment. And those moments become our future. The past are past moments in which we had an opportunity to respond a certain way, and how we responded brought us to this moment of now. How we respond right now and in every single moment is dictating what our future will be. And so there's an infinite number of possibilities, but all I know is, for me, I want my future to be filled with love. So what does that mean? I have to respond with love in every single moment. If somebody does that mean people don't offend me or come off negatively towards me sometimes? No, not at all. It still happens. I'm human like everybody else, but I refuse to give them power. I refuse to give the circumstances or the situations power in my life. And so it's like, okay, what I've learned to do is take a step back and tell myself their journey is their journey. People are people. They are where they are as a result of their own journey and their own curriculum. And just like in school, how you have people taking the AP courses, the regular courses, and then you have people who take the slower classes. Some of them call LD classes or whatever you want to call them. Some people go to alternative school. They're just all in different curriculums. And, it doesn't mean that I'm any more or any less than they are. It just means that their curriculum is teaching them something right now. But I can assist in that process by being love. Because if I can be the light of love, then I can shine light and show them something that they may not be used to seeing. they may not be used to experiencing, and so I'll never let another person's negativity. I've become very vocal about, the energy around me, and I won't just position myself around certain people or circumstances. When you love yourself, you have to create healthy boundaries. When you love other people, you have to give them space to be where they are and choose their path. When certain circumstances happen around you, again, you have to stand in your power and ask yourself, how much do I love myself? How much does this now moment mean to me? What do I want to create for my future right now? And when you start realizing that in this moment, you're creating something and you truly believe it, because a lot of people say, oh, I know that. How many people have you talked to and they're like, oh, I know this stuff. Yeah. Oh, I already heard it before, whatever. The truth is, people say they believe, but the thing about belief is an action word. If I say I believe something, then I have to become the substance and the evidence of what I say I believe. Otherwise, I don't believe it. I just know it. I know something about it. I can pick up a book and I can read a bunch of information about, conscious expansion and self-love. And I can say, oh, I know all about it. But have I embodied it? And see, so a lot of people still struggle. And see, I'll even go back to the message of Jesus. And like I said, I'm not a religious person, but I believe that as an example of someone who walked in a state of Christed consciousness, that full life of love, he's a great example, because, and in his message, the religion has completely distorted his message, I realized this when I was studying for myself. And then I ended up getting a bachelor's in biblical studies and Eastern religion, because I wanted to know, like, all these founding beliefs that we follow, what was really said, not what we've been taught in Western culture, but what was really said, but I realized, even in the message of Jesus, he said, if any man chooses to follow my path, to follow this state of being, to follow this way of life, he must first deny himself. Then and only then can he take up his cross and follow me. But his message, I always ask people, what was Jesus's message, especially when I'm talking to religious people, and it's not any negative thing on them, but I always prompt questions to people to really get them to think for themselves and think beyond the programs. But I asked them, what was his message? And the first thing I get is, that he came to die on the cross to save us of our sins, so on and so forth. And I'll say, no, that's not what his message was. His message was repent. And in Aramaic or Hebrew, that word means to turn within, to come back to, repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand. It is before you. And he said, in one part of it, he says, don't listen to men when they say the kingdom is here or the kingdom is there. For I tell you, the kingdom is in you. So turn back to the kingdom, go back within. You miss the mark, and you live this life that is less than what you have the potential and the power to live in, because you focus so much on the outside. You focus so much on, what's happening around you. But we got to go back within. We got to learn to love ourselves from this space, realizing that we are creative beings. And with each breath, we become something new. With each breath, we have the power to manifest something new in our lives, and I feel like I'm just kind of all over the place right now, but
no, keep going. I'm like, I'm so like hanging on every word. I'm like, yes. I'm learning so much right now.
It's just amazing, but, like I was meditating one day and back in 2005, all the stuff is in my book, by the way. I just finished writing a book, Awakening Your Inner Master, The Journey of Self-Mastery. And that'll be dropping before the end of this year.
Awesome. Where can people get that when it drops?
It's going to be on Amazon, and I'll be promoting it online. I'm going to give the first 100 copies away. Awesome. And so all that information will go up on my website at evolvemastery.com, and they'll be able to know when that's going to be dropping and how they can get a free copy. Because I believe first and foremost, it's all about adding value. If this isn't about Princeton, I always say Evolve Mastery is not about Princeton. It's beyond the idea of Princeton. I'm not even about Princeton. Princeton is nothing more than an idea that I show to the world. Princeton is going to be whatever I say Princeton is going to be. It's just, I'm at a different place, but I want to add value to the world. I want to add light to the world. And so you can get it on Amazon when it comes out. And eventually it's going to be on Kindle and on Audible. I am going to do an audiobook as well, but
awesome. Well, actually,
I'll keep everybody push.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was just actually, I was kind of, while you were speaking earlier, it kept popping up in my head to ask you about, since you're speaking about adding value, to ask you about, lack mentality, because when you were speaking about love and living from the state of love, truly like the power of love, what was popping into my head was like, well, the reason that a lot of us really don't is because we live in the state of lack, a lack of love, a lack of whatever it is. But really it comes down to a lack of love, a lack of self-love, whatever it is. So I'm curious of your perspective of this lack mentality and maybe how to transcend that or how to, how to deal with that.
Well, first off, we have to realize that, of course, lack is a state of thought. It's a state of being, that starts in our moment. If I were to ask myself right now, am I lacking anything? No, I'm not. I have everything that I need. And it's one of those things where in every single moment, in that moment, we have everything that we need. And I can't get love, and I love the book. There's a book called The Mastery of Love by Don Miguel Ruiz. And, what I love about that book is there's a story in there where he talks about, this guy who didn't believe in love. He didn't believe in love at all. And then, he met this lady on a plane. He was traveling and she didn't believe in love either. And they had this great conversation, about how they didn't believe in love and so on and so forth. But they started hanging out quite a bit because they realized they had so much in common. And then at one point, she leaves and she goes and she's not there. And he finds himself missing her. And then he asks himself, could this be love? But he goes on, he goes on and, he starts thinking about all that he wants to give her, well, he goes to give her, he takes this light, this aspect of himself, and I'm condensing it and breaking it all up. But in short, he tries to give her, this love, and she drops it and it breaks into a million pieces, and the moral of that story is nobody else is responsible for your love. Nobody else is responsible for your state of being. Nobody else is responsible for your happiness. You are responsible for that. I used to be a victim, and really that lack mentality comes from being a victim. It comes from looking at my life and what I don't have and what I've gone through and how this person did this to me and that person did that to me. You're keeping a record of so many different things that never happened for you. And you're not adding stock or giving stock or adding value to your own life, to your own breath, to your own state of being. I love myself so deeply that I share that love everywhere that I go. I don't need to find that love. Does it feel good to be appreciated? Yes, it does. But I don't rely on other people to give me love. If I am missing something or I feel a void within me, it's up to me to go deeper to really find, okay, where's that void? Why do I feel like I am lacking something? Because again, it starts with the thought. So what we have to ask ourselves is, why do I think this way? What program is running that makes me feel as though I am lacking something? What have I attached an idea to that I am not receiving right now? That's making me feel as though I am unfulfilled in this way or some other way. Because really, when we start feeling this way, what that really shows is that we have not been giving ourselves the self-care that we need to. We say, well, I want to feel more love. Well, start loving yourself, because you are neglecting yourself. Nobody else, if everyone else in this world passed away and went on, guess what? I would still be here. I would still have to choose to wake up every day. I would still have to choose to find something to be grateful for. I would still have to find a reason to love myself and be grateful for myself, and to be grateful for every experience that I'm blessed with. Nothing else will dictate that to me. It's your, I always say it's your responsibility or your ability to respond, because it's like the saying, if you change the way you see things, then the things you see will change. And so if I start thinking in lack, if I start perceiving that I lack something, then the things that I am paying attention to are actually mirroring back to me that which I am not giving to myself. And so I had to take a step back and say, wait a minute, I'm not investing in myself right now. If I'm feeling like I'm lacking something, it's because I've been ignoring some aspect of myself. I've been neglecting myself. I haven't been loving myself. I've been making myself feel worthless. I've been making myself feel like I don't matter. I've been making myself feel like so on and so forth. And we victimize ourselves because we're trying to get something from outside. But again, repent, go back to the kingdom, realize that everything that you need is right there. It's all right there. And when you start again, this goes to what we say. We know your vibe attracts your tribe. When you start flowing in a state of love, guess what's going to happen? You're going to start attracting the energy of love. You're going to start attracting more people, more circumstances, more situations that vibrate at that same frequency, because this is what's happening. As we raise our energy, we're shifting our frequency, and so if we're still vibrating, and this is what's happening to a lot of people in this spiritual movement, so many people are reading the books and they're getting the knowing without embodying the wisdom behind the knowing. And so mentally in their brain, they have all this information that tells them that they should be, able to walk in this power and love and be this love, but they haven't embodied this love. And so they're still flowing on a state of frequency that's vibrating at a level that keeps drawing everything that they're lacking. But the only reason it's drawing it universally is because those things are mirroring to you that it's time to step it up. It's time to shift your vibration, because you now know that you shouldn't be flowing here anymore, but you're choosing to flow here now. You're choosing to stay in a negative state or lowered state of being. Although you have the wisdom, you have not embodied that wisdom to raise and elevate your vibration. And this is why we call many aspects of spiritual growth practices. But people are not practicing what they need to practice. Just like an athlete, he's not going to get better if he's not practicing what he needs to practice to elevate his game. Well, spiritually speaking, if we're not practicing what we need to practice in order to elevate our mental, physical, spiritual, and emotional game, then we're not going to elevate to our next level of flow or playing. We're not going to be able to give 110% in each one of those areas because we haven't been practicing it. And that's why I always tell people that mastery, anybody can say, oh, I'm a life coach. I coach people. I talk, I could know absolutely nothing about a sport and read a book and go coach somebody about what I just read in a book. Right. But when I say I am a self-mastery coach, it's something different, because now I have to embody the areas of mastery that I'm teaching other people. Nobody can look at my life and say, wait a minute, he hasn't mastered, his ability to love everyone. He hasn't mastered his ability to be present in every moment. He hasn't mastered his ability to do whatever it is. Like I live to master my life. But what does that mean? That means I have to put into practice every single day. I have to put into practice self-love. I have to put into practice meditation. I have to put into practice focusing only on positive things. I have to put into practice putting in positive energy where things seem negative on the outside. I have to put into practice shifting the energy around me. I have to put all these things into practice in order to shift my vibration, because ultimately the universal vibration is the vibration of love. And so if I'm not feeling enough love, it's because I haven't shifted my vibration. I haven't been putting in the practice, and therefore I'm flowing in a lesser vibration than that which I know I have the ability to flow in.
I'm just staring at you. I'm just in transfixed. I'm just like, you're speaking directly to me, like directly to me, and probably directly to everyone else listening as well, because you're in a state of love. And like when you speak, what's impacting me so much right now is just realizing, like, I feel like lately I've personally have been bumping up against people who are just so connected. I mean, as we've been talking about this whole interview, so connected to the vibration of love, so connected to source, so connected. And it's impacting me in a way where I'm just realizing when you are connected, I mean, and this is, what Abraham Hicks talks about all the time and all the other teachers, when you are connected, just your being, just your presence, just you being around someone else can awaken them or can speak to them in a way that they could not hear or feel before. And it's so wild. It's so wild because someone else can be very, very, and you were just saying this, someone else can basically be very, very knowledgeable, can know all the things, right? And can say them to you. They can say, hey, these are the things we need to know. But but it's not the same. It doesn't have the same impact as when you are literally connected to source and then flowing that love outwards. And I could literally talk to you for days. Days.
It's funny.
Yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say it's funny because all my friends are just like, man, like, I could talk. They say the same thing. They're just like, man, it's something about your voice and your energy, and
yes,
and it's amazing, because it's humbling to me every time I hear that, because it's like, wow, like, who am I? That I've been given the ability to do such, But again, it goes back to also owning through self-love, owning confidently that this didn't happen overnight. I had to do the work. And that's what I always tell people, it always brings me back to telling them, don't see me as being more than you or less than you. I'm simply doing the work. I'm putting into practice the things that I'm learning, and that's really what it boils down to. Even when it comes to coaching, it's more about putting in the practice, and showing them how to put in the practice. But more than that, it's my style of teaching and speaking is a little unorthodox because I flow based on energy.
Yeah.
I'm not going to give you a bunch of workbooks to work through and a bunch of diagrams to fill out. It doesn't work that way with me. It's like, let's look at your life. Let's look at what you're creating in your life. Let's look at what you want to create more of. Let's look at the potential, because I always say you are the root to the tree of your life. And if you don't like the fruit, then you can prune those branches all you want, but you're only going to grow more of the same. You got to get back to the root. We got to go back to the root and realize the root. What are we nourishing that root with? Because the universal tree that we are, this universal spiritual tree incarnated in this world, being fruitful in this world, can grow an abundance of fruit. It can grow all types of fruit, but what is at your root? What do you have the potential to grow? What are you meant to grow? And that's really what we have to ask ourselves. In the tree of my life, what am I meant to grow? What am I meant to be fruitful at? What am I meant to manifest? And where am I nurturing or failing to nurture my root, my being, so that I can create that, so that I can create these experiences, so that I can create a deeper flow of love and compassion, and sympathy and empathy, so that I can expand in my being to the point where I become more than just this body speaking words. I become an energetic force of change. I become an energetic force shifting every single thing around me and sending a ripple effect out into the world, because, I say, I don't mean this in a negative sense, but I have some qualms with the whole spiritualist movement. It's become more like a religion.
Yeah.
And the problem with that is, everybody's spiritual now or woke. And I'm like, no, you're not. Like, you're completely missing it. It's like I was telling my mom when I went back to visit recently, she was like, yeah, such and such just started a church over here. Number one, the word church in the Greek was ekklesia. It never had anything to do with the building. The word church actually meant those who have been called out. So the church wasn't a building. It was a group of people who had awakened to the Christ consciousness within, who were sharing that such an extreme state of love that it was shaking and shifting every city that they went to. And so when we start walking in power, when I say I am spiritual, of course, everything is spiritual. Everything stems from spirit. But have you embodied spiritual knowing? And I think that's where a lot of people are lacking, is that they have the know, they have the words, they have the information without the knowing. And, we'll see the 11:11. So I've been seeing it all the time. Okay, good. That simply means you're exactly where you need to be. And whatever lessons you're meant to be learning right now, you need to be learning those lessons. And also it means that you need to be really paying attention to what you're putting your attention and your energy into, because this is a time of expedited growth. This is a time of expedited creation, and the more we move forward, the more we're going to begin to see this. So you have a lot of people, especially you've seen it a lot in this 11 year, you have a lot of people who have been so spiritual and they're like, why am I going through everything that I'm going through this year? Well, it's because that the energy of the 11, and it's crazy because I'm also an 11. My life path number is 11.
Oh.
So it's the number of the master teacher.
So you're 11 and a 2.
Yeah,
right?
11
Yeah.
too.
Got it.
And with that, everything that I'm teaching, I've had to live because my entire life path has been about learning lessons to teach others. But it's also been about not allowing myself to get so high because that 11 vibration is very high. It's very in tune intuitively to the higher things, which makes it hard to ground. But the 2 side actually helps me ground that 11, and so I've had to learn what it's like to flow extremely high, but also flow low and still connect the 2, and so when I'm talking to other people and it's like, it's great, you're on the spiritual high right now. That's awesome. But are you grounding it? Because what happens is we'll get on the spiritual high and we'll hit the slope. And I actually talked about this in the Positive Heads group. I posted a live video about it. It's the ebb and flow, right? So when we talk about the ebb and flow of life, once we start the spiritual journey, which our entire life path is a spiritual journey, the only difference is some are aware of it, some are not.
Right.
But from the time we come here, it's a spiritual journey. We're all on a spiritual journey.
Right.
Not just those who had some sort of spiritual experience. No, we're all on a spiritual journey.
Right.
Some are just aware of it, some are not. Some are aware of it on a deeper level than others, so on and so forth. But in the ebb and flow of life, what happens is as we begin to awaken and become more conscious, we reach these peaks of very high energy, very high flow, and we start getting these downloads, and it's so amazing, and then we start feeling that decline, and we're like, I want to stay here. I want to stay here. I don't want to go back down there, but that's important. It's like what we have to understand is when we hit those peaks, it's like the universe saying, all right, I'm about to download into you everything you need for the upcoming challenges and the upcoming tests. Just like in school, the teacher will teach you everything you need to learn so that when it's time to take the test, you will grow, you will evolve, and you'll be ready to move on to the next level. So if we want to keep these highs, we can't just stay here. We get that information and then we start on that downslope. And as we start hitting that downslope, as I said in that video, don't hit the brakes. And that's what we start doing. We start hitting the brakes. But what does that do? We start losing momentum. We start slowing down. We start slowing. And in doing so, slowing down our vibration. And we get to this low place and we're like, man, I don't want to be here. I was doing so good. I was doing so good. And life is like, okay, well, if you want to get going again, apply what I taught you in that high place. Apply the wisdom that I've given you. Embody it so that you can enlighten that low place and raise the vibration so that you can be back in this place. It's a reason why we go through that vibration or through that ebb and flow. It's like the universe is like, okay, I'm going to take you to the high place, take you down to a low place where you're going to be tested. And your whole purpose is to raise your vibration so that you can bring that low place to a high place.
Wow.
And then keep that flow. But what happens is if we keep going back into that, I call the valley of slopes, if we keep going back into that place over and over again, and it's like, I've already experienced this. And then we go to the place where it's like, I want to read more. And then you pick up a book and it's like, the book isn't saying anything to you anymore. And you throw the book across the room and it's like, nothing is speaking to me. And it's like the universe saying, I've already told you everything you need to know and you're not applying it where you are. So you're full right now. You can't even feel anything else into your cup because there's things in you that you need to release that you're not releasing. Wow. There's goals that I've given you that you're not achieving or working towards. There's a passion that you haven't even started to build upon. There's a vision that you've been inspired to speak through that you're not utilizing. So I can't put anything into you until you empty out the vibration of love and flow that I've given you to push, to relieve or to release into the world.
Wow.
That's what it's all about. We don't get high just to stay there and say, oh, I'm so spiritual and I don't want to go back. I can't wait to leave this world. You're here for a reason.
Yeah.
You incarnated for a reason. And every lesson in your curriculum on your life path is meant to bring you into those places so that you can raise the vibration in those areas that you hate so much.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. Like that, because I'm a very visual person, and the way you just, because I'm seeing you right now, and the way you just explained all of that makes so much sense to me. And I go through that all the time where I have these huge high peaks. And I was talking to my friend about it this morning, she was going through and she's like, I don't understand what happened. I mean, it's the same thing. And I totally get that. Like, and one of my favorite phrases right now, just because it just applies all the time. And I feel like it's just such, I just love like the idea of leveling up. So it's like you're saying, it's like you go down there and you're supposed to level up and we're all supposed to raise together. I mean, anyway, I love how you just explained that. I feel like you just revealed a mystery of life to me, I swear. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Well, God, Princeton, I could actually literally talk to you forever and ever and ever. And I cannot believe an hour went by. I don't want this to end. But so before it does end, because we're like I said, nearing an hour. First of all, is there anything else that you feel is important that you want to share with everyone? I mean, you just gave us huge downloads. So, but is there anything else that you feel is really important that you want to share before you go?
You know, just the biggest thing that I can give you is to just enjoy the process. You know, I know that, you know, the challenges that we've signed up for in this life are not always easy, but we just try to find a place of gratitude in those challenges, knowing that you were the one that chose those challenges before you came. And even the challenging people and circumstances that come into your life, they're all there serving a purpose on your life path. Everything that's happening is happening for you, not to you. You know, and so when you can learn to just embrace that, you know, that's the greatest thing that I can leave with everyone is to love yourself and embrace the challenges, because your challenges are nothing more than opportunities for growth. You know, they're nothing more than opportunities for you to expand. And as you would say, level up.
Love it. Thank you so much. And you mentioned it before, but do you want to mention your website again and how people can reach out to you also if they want coaching?
Sure. If you'd like to reach out to me, my website is www.evolvedmastery.com. I also have a podcast, Evolved Mastery, on iTunes and on Castbox. If you have an Android phone, you can also download it from the website directly. If you go and you can to my website, there's a download link. So you can download it for free directly to your computer, save it, put it on your phone, however you do that through Android or iPhone, whatever your preference is. And
I'm subscribing.
Evolved Mastery, everything across social media platforms. I'm in the process of rebranding everything right now. So I'm relaunching Evolved Mastery in the new platform in January. It was Princeton Clark Coaching, but I'm doing away with Princeton Clark because this is bigger than me. It's about us. It's about evolving us, you know, and stepping into a new level of power. So everything is Evolved Mastery on social media now. And I'm looking to connect with other people, you know, to build this platform. If anyone wants more information, they can contact me through the website or directly through social media. And like I said, more information will be coming for the book as well as I get closer to the release date.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Princeton. This was an absolute pleasure. I feel
thank you.
Blessed. So thank you so much. Have a beautiful day. Bye.
Likewise, love. You do the same.
Okay, awesome.
That's it for this week's episode. If you're a listener with a story to share and are interested in being featured on a future episode of this special series, you can email me at alexa@positivehead.com. Also, if you're craving more consciousness elevating content, be sure to check out Gaia, which is the go-to source for streaming consciousness content on the web, where you can stream an incredible 7,000 plus exclusive videos covering 5,000 years of wisdom. As you all hear Brandon constantly say, it's a daily conscious effort to maintain an elevated vibration. And if you're looking to journey deep down the rabbit hole to do so, then Gaia is the best place we know of to do it. Period. And you can sign up for your first month for only 99 cents at gaia.com/positivehead. That's spelled GAIA.com/positivehead. Check it out. Otherwise, tune in next Friday for another P-Head Posse episode. And until then, as Brandon always says, journey well.